December, this meeting of the Winchester Select Board. And we had a short agenda to begin, but now over the course of a few days, we've added a number of items. I would like to start with the Waterfield lot land development agreement. And I think we have, Lisa, do we have something to show, or something to share on that, or
yes,
kind of summarize it?
So Jillian, you can share. So, based on the last conversation, can you share? I think Jillian's frozen. Jillian.
Uh-oh.
Jillian, you're frozen. Do you want to log out and log back in?
There we go. How am I now?
You're moving. That's good.
We can hear you.
You got me?
There you go.
Sorry about that, everybody. Zoom's been giving me a little bit of trouble this week for some reason, but hopefully it bears with us. So here I have the current version of the LDA, which has been approved by the developer. So as long as it looks okay to the select board, this will be the final version. And we've extended through today, so it'll be executed today, and then we'll get running on the ground lease, which is great news. So I'll just blow up the red line, which shows the changes from the version that the select board last reviewed earlier this week. So the proposition that we had made to the developer was either that they double the deposits, or that we get to retain the right upon an event of default to go after any damages at law and in equity without carving that back to just the receipt of the deposit or our self-help right. They didn't like how broad that was, and I agree that typically, the deposit is meant to capture the entire cost of essentially keeping the property off the market. So they liked the idea of having the deposit be the accurate reflection of that, rather than just leaving it completely unlimited in the damages provision. What they proposed was kind of a hybrid solution. So we originally had 50,000 and 20,000 here in the deposit for a total of 70,000. They offered that we could have the $70,000 deposit, and then rather than doubling that and locking up another $70,000, they would give us liquidated damages upon an event of default of both retaining the deposit and getting to go after them for another $70,000 to give us the full amount of money that we were looking for in doubling the deposit, but not forcing them to lock up all of that money for the duration. Seemed reasonable, but I expressed to them the concerns that the select board had when we kind of touched on this issue a little bit, about the ability to collect from them, especially where they're a single purpose entity. So the way we landed after that conversation was to raise the second deposit to 50,000. So the total deposit would be 100. And then that leaves us 40 short of the doubling that we had originally talked about. So upon an event of default, they would have to come up with another $40,000 in liquidated damages. So all we would have to chase them for is 40, which is obviously much smaller than 70, and we would already be holding 100 as the deposit. That's the most controversial thing in this draft. Everything else should not be a surprise to anyone on the town side. So how do we feel about that resolution?
Anyone have any comments?
I mean, I'm okay with that resolution. I mean, I still think, chasing them for 40,000 would be difficult and, inexpensive. So it may be cost prohibitive. So, I think getting 100,000 is okay. I guess I'm more concerned about what came to light yesterday with the pro forma budget numbers that came out.
Susan, I'm sorry, you had asked for the pro forma and I forgot to send that, but you guys got what they had sent as the pro forma. So somebody sent that over. We've got that.
Okay, yeah. I guess it came through on my end as of last night as there's something attached here, but not the actual attachment itself. But go on.
So, yeah. I'm sorry. So I guess I'm just concerned, just about the terms in Exhibit C and the, terms of the rent that we're talking about now that we're seeing actual dollars. I really like this project. I support this project, but, when I saw those numbers and what the town's getting, it was striking.
So
And,
he,
I don't know. I mean, I understand this is an LDA agreement and we'll negotiate the ground lease, but, after the fact, but I mean, we're putting a term sheet together with expectations of what the rent will be in the lease. And, this just doesn't, in my mind, just doesn't make sense from the town's perspective.
yeah. So this is the pro forma that they had sent over. They said that these numbers are consistent with the, I mean, obviously the bottom line here, the 10% to town, which so that the 10% to town wasn't part of their proposal. It's something that they agreed to after the fact. So that line wasn't in the proposal, but I think everything else in here was in their proposal. So these numbers that they've based this calculation on shouldn't be a huge surprise to the town. But that bottom line here is how it all boils down. And obviously, one represents like the first year that they're operational, not while they're building, obviously. So, I mean, we had originally asked, when we asked for some amount of additional rent on top of an upfront $1 million payment, we made a proposal and we said, but in no event less than 25,000. They weren't willing to do that because obviously, as you can see here at the beginning, some of the numbers are much lower. You have 9,000, 10,000, 12,000. As we get into past year 10, we're more in the 30,000s. Year 20, we're 56,000. So, I mean, it's not no money. At the same time, I think we do need to keep in mind that it's an affordable housing development. So, I mean, not entirely, there are some commercial spaces and whatnot, obviously. At the end of the day, it's going to be the town's business decision if it's something we're comfortable. I will say that this is our last opportunity to touch these numbers. If we feel strong, this would be a material term. And if we're not comfortable with it, then we need to work that issue out before we sign the LDA. There will not be another opportunity to revisit this under the ground lease. The developer will not be happy about that if we didn't raise it at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm new, and I appreciate everyone's hard work on this project and the direction that the town has gone with this project. And like I said, I have mixed emotions. I like the design, I like the idea, I like the project, but from a financial aspect of this town where we're strapped for cash, I just don't see this. We have a great asset in that lot. I just don't see this making sense from a town perspective. I mean, if we were to sell the lot, and certainly maybe we could, do a friendly 40B or some type of deed restriction, we would realize significantly more revenue up front, I would believe, and then get the tax revenue on top of that. We're entering into a 99-year lease here. We're going to get the tax revenue, and we're going to get these small payments on top of this, where, in the first, 20 years, the maximum payment we get is $56,000. I don't, again, I know I'm new, but I just don't see this making much financial sense for the town. I mean, and to lock us in at this point, and I believe, I don't want to waste anyone's time. So, I get why they want to lock us in, and, this doesn't become a material issue. I just don't see this making much sense from my perspective.
Yeah, I agree too, Rich. It was, I think my expectation was there'd be a little bit more. I mean, the town has a couple of objectives. Affordable housing is one, near transit housing is another. And, also the financial piece is one that a lot of residents have been very concerned with this project, especially that we're, kind of forsaking this land, indefinitely. So that's why, I was trying to push a little bit more for a little bit more money, but it seems it seems what comes back to the town on the financial side is going to be hard to justify. to town meeting. That's, you know, that's my concern. And I haven't really done it too deep of a dive in the pro forma. So
Well, and I was not involved in the initial, too deeply in the RFQ and the RFP, but one of the main goals for the town here is to have an affordable mixed income building here that would allow us to stay within our safe harbor under 40B. And this project is more than the typical, 25% affordable units of a 40B. It has, I think, about 2/3 of the units are at some level of affordability, and so it's also, that also makes it eligible for state subsidy. So this, and that I think was very attractive to the people looking at this initially, and to the, town meeting members were looking at it initially. A lot of people will say, why don't we just build something that has entirely affordable units? Let's really build our inventory of this kind of housing, especially someplace where you can, access things like you can walk to Stop and Shop, and you can get on a train and get downtown, or get on a bus. It just seemed like, kind of tailored to our goal, to the town goals. That's part of why the rents are not going to be such that they will throw off a lot of income for the town. It's a self-sustaining project, but it's not like a market rate building.
And I can appreciate that, Susan. I just think when we're talking about overrides and budget issues and cash flow issues, I think we need to be. I just can't justify this financially for the town. I mean, I think we're giving away too much. I mean, and that's not a knock on Civico or the negotiations or anything. I just, for this asset that we have, I just don't know if this is the financial viable way for us to move forward.
So I do just want to point out that in the developer's original proposal, the only rent that they had offered was the initial upfront payment of $1 million. This new annual ongoing rent is something that we had asked for after accepting the proposal. And I was honestly very surprised that they were willing to give us anything, because obviously rent is a very substantial term that they would have built into the initial proposal. So the fact that they were willing to give anything at all was a surprise to me, and I thought very generous. Given that background and context, I think it's highly unlikely that we can push them up any higher from what we've already negotiated here.
Jillian, can I intervene? I just want to make sure, because this process has been so elongated that sometimes it's hard to understand how transparent it's been. I mean, the development of the RFQ was a public process. The development of the RFP was a public process. We did not require an annual rent payment in all the interviews, which were public, the proposals which were public. Only one of the 5 companies proposed an annual rent, and that was Wynn. And I think it was like $100,000 a year. They were certainly way more generous in terms of their dollar amount than any other, but none of the other 4 had any annual rent payments in there. All 5 select board members were there, along with members of other boards. It was publicized, recorded, and the questions were asked of each developer prior to selection about whether they were willing to consider an annual rent payment. And no one committed. They said, yes, we would consider it, but no one actually committed to it. We then moved forward with selecting Civico. We went to town meeting. We had various discussions, these iterations of, creating this annual rent payment, was looked at by a number of different entities. The $25,000 minimum was something that we had been floating around for quite some time because we had an understanding of what the range would be, that it would be less than 25,000 for a short period of time. So I just do want to kind of reiterate that going through this process for, you know, a year and a half, and then, you know, the day of trying to do the LDA this is pretty significant news to me if we wanted to do something different than how we've been going the last year and a half.
Well, I think too, you know, we always, we asked all the developers about annual rent. So it was something that, you know, we were selecting a, you know, I think the RFQ process got us to the point where we knew that any of those developers that came back could do the project in the way that we wanted. But I think annual rent was always a component that we would kind of negotiate later. So, you know, it's, I think we kind of said as well that it would be dead on arrival if we, and difficult for us to sell the town meeting if we didn't have that something coming back. The difference with this project and most 40Bs is that we're providing, you know, the land, so their acquisition costs are lower, and that's something that has been raised by everyone in the RFP process, that there should be some kind of financial value coming back to the town. I mean, I just feel, I know we've been working on it for a while. It just seems that it's these essential terms are, you know, kind of backing us into the corner at the 11th hour, you know. So, you know, even the deposit, I mean, it seemed like they were, you know, offering more than they were at. I mean, it's really such a small amount of money. It's ultimately amounts to, you know, legal fees for a little while, and that's about it, you know, on the town side. It doesn't put us in a substantially better position.
So I would also, as my recollection is that we, you know, sort of talked through this with our sort of consultant at DHCD, and also Marty Jones, who's you know, very experienced in these types of projects, and they both indicated that, you know, some of these projects will throw off enough rent under a ground lease, you know, that, you know, they throw off different amounts, but none of them are going to be very high. And I also kind of would urge us to take a realistic look at this town land. It is highly valuable from its location, from a location standpoint, downtown. It's also right next to an active commuter line station. It's also it's a challenging site. Let's just put it that way. It's a challenging site to build on. And these folks have designed something that the planning board and I think all members of the select board thought was going to be very, you know, just what we wanted there, very attractive, energy efficient, and so forth. So, you know, this at the 11th hour to be holding out for more money when the main goal was to get a good project that would meet a lot of the other goals that we had, just seems to me to throw up too much of an obstacle to this thing. It's too important to the town to get this done. It will raise, you know, we will get the tax revenue, we will get some building, you know, building permit fees and those types of things. But it's not a financial venture so much as a affordable housing venture.
I also think in terms of complications, we also need to recognize the complication of juggling this project with the ongoing project with the MBTA, which the developer has been surprisingly flexible and accommodating with, much more so than I anticipated. So I think that definitely counts for something. And also realistically, if we were going to try and ask for more ongoing annual rent at this point, you know, the possibility of what that amount actually would be, I think we need to step back and say, is that really a significant enough amount of money that it's worth the loss of rapport that we would get with the developer in the ongoing, we still have to negotiate the ground lease. So going back and asking for something so significant for such a insignificant amount of money overall, I'm not sure is worth it on the whole.
Okay, I've got to jump off, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the LDA as presented, and with the changes that have been updated by Jillian since our last meeting.
Sure. There are a couple other small changes. Should I run through them quickly, or has everybody had a chance to review the red line that went out?
They seem pretty minor to me. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, in the sense that like I do really have to
Yeah.
jump off. You know, if we can, you know, make it you know, conditional on the approval of those things. I mean, I don't know.
Yep. I can just show it quickly if you want. The only other changes were to this section, which were the recommendations from FinCom here, having to do with the upon a resale, the profit sharing. That was it. Otherwise, we've talked about everything.
So they raised that.
Yep, FinCom raised these, developer accepted those comments.
So that's another, you know, financial term that they are willing to accommodate for us.
That's right.
Yeah.
Raising from 10 to 15% is pretty significant. Yeah.
So anyways, there's a motion there. Rich, if you have any other issues, I know that we've, you know, it's not perfect, but I don't know if another 6 months of this is going to get us back what, you know, what we need substantially. I mean, you know, town meeting is the one that makes the decision, and we still can chip away at some things with the ground lease. I mean, that's my feeling.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not, you know, if you're asking me to vote today, I'm not sold on the project. You know, I appreciate everyone's comments. I just can't in good faith, you know, move this forward.
Well, the other thing I would ask you to weigh is the financial consequences of a large 40B after we fall out of our safe harbor, a large 40B like this thing we were looking at on Holton Street, an enormous sudden increase in school enrollment. You know, that's a financial problem as well. So I would just ask you to think about that.
Yeah, certainly.
If the board isn't willing to move forward, we do need to extend the MOU. Otherwise, we start over the whole process.
I mean, I'm happy to extend the date if you want more time to talk to them, and you know, have all our members here for a vote. But I mean, I can't vote on this proposal. I can't support it.
All right. And I also at some point need some direction as to what exactly you're looking forward to, because I don't want to try to change the 10% to 15% and that not be
Right.
enough, and then extend, you know, just keep going back to the table. So
So do you want to vote, or you want to extend the MOU?
was there a motion on the table?
There is.
Okay.
Yep.
I need a second. Can I
Well, that-
second?
Okay.
Second for the purposes of this. So a roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
No.
and I vote yes.
And, you know, one of the things that we can also do is we can kind of have I think that my impression was that Mariano, I don't want to speak for them, and Amy were relatively favorable to it. You know, so, you know, we can always ratify this decision if we need to add in their perspective in order to sell it to town meeting, because it might look on paper to town meeting like it's a closer vote than it is, I guess is my point.
Yep.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
Okay.
all right, I've got to jump off. What else?
Well, we need-
We need
yeah.
to extend the MOU,
Okay.
and we need to vote on the high school parking.
Okay. I move that we extend the MOU.
Second to a date, or
Why don't we just do April 29th, even though I think
Yep.
this is going to be brought up at the 26th meeting.
Okay. So there's a motion to
So
extend
moved.
to,
Yep.
to the 29th.
Of
Is there a
April.
second?
Second,
Well, roll call vote. Mike,
Yes.
Rich,
yes.
I wrote yes. And Mike, before we lose you, we really need to talk about the high school parking because there are, all the students will be back.
Yep.
You know, full day, 5 days a week, on the 26th. So they're looking to have, allow students to park along the, along Skilling's there along the pond, because when they issued all the parking permits back in September, they, you know, it was based on having the hybrid model and not everybody would be coming to school on a given day. Starting that week after vacation, you know, all of the students will be coming back to school, and the parking officer or the traffic officer, Officer Bachelor, and the principal are concerned that these students will be parking on Shore Road. They'll be parking in the Stop and Shop lot, and to, you know, prevent that and impinge on the town center parking even worse, they're asking to allow the students to park temporarily for the remainder of the school year along Skilling's, along the pond there.
Don't the seniors only have like 3 weeks left?
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, so can
So
we,
it shouldn't be quite as bad a problem then, but I don't really know the distribution among seniors and juniors of the parking passes.
yeah, I mean, I'll make a motion to allow them to park on Skilling's Road, you know, to the, you know, on the pond side until the end of school year this year.
Second.
Roll call vote, Rich,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Let's see, I guess, do we want to talk about downtown parking at the same time, since they're related?
There's no votes on anything
Okay.
else. So
And
we're ready
I'm
for the quorum.
hosting a 9:30 meeting with clients I got to jump off on. But
Okay, thank you,
you
Mike.
know, sorry. You know, we can get together another time if we need, you know, or well, I don't know. I don't know what the changes are, but if there's nothing to vote on, then I gotta bounce.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll hop off as well unless you guys need me for
Yes.
anything.
Thank you,
Do we
Philly.
need a motion to adjourn, or are you guys gonna, I don't know, just
Yeah.
because it's such a small quorum?
Yeah, we'll do motion to adjourn. We can update.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So moved.
Oh, what were you saying, Lisa?
No, I said it was fine to adjourn.
Okay. So is there a second?
Second.
Roll
people.
call vote, Rich,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Thanks
Great. Thanks, everyone.
for taking time
you.
to do this.
Thanks, everyone.